Hello Voices, my name is Joe Troy and I'm a multi-award-winning voiceover and host of a VOICEOVER'S audio adventure podcast, a bi-weekly show where I learn about the voiceover and audio industry and share with you all the stories, tips and tricks along the way. Marketing. The action of business or promoting and selling products or services, including market research and advertising. Without people knowing that something exists, then how would someone find you? Who do I contact and how? Today's adventure is delving into the world of voiceover marketing. I'm fully aware that the subject of marketing is very complex and includes many other topics such as social media, search engine optimization, etc. But I'm going to save that for another day. I'm going to focus mainly on outbound marketing, how you should market your product in general, things to consider, who you should market to, where and how. Marketing in the early stages of your journey should be at the forefront of your daily tasks, as the whole reason you're doing it is to get more work and meet other voiceovers. I focus on LinkedIn to network and grow my client base, and Instagram, Twitter, etc. to keep up to date with what the VO community is doing. My process in essence is find production companies, advertising agencies, creative agencies, and VO agencies. Tell them a little about me, what I do, what I've done, and what I can offer, and wait for a reply. If I get one, great. If not, then send a reminder periodically. This process never stops. In theory, it sounds easy, but in practice, it can seem like chasing your tail. Work smarter, not harder, and consistency is key. Let's hear what some other VOs do.
Hey guys, this is Camille from Voiced by Camille. How long have you been a VO? I've been in the industry now for about 6 months, so I'm still a baby. But when it comes to marketing, I knew that I'm going to have some type of plan or strategy so that I can consistently find work. What method of marketing and or platform brings you the best results and work? Currently, it's cold email marketing, and I've kept it really basic in regards to who I've been reaching out to because I'm still quite fresh. So I'm just at a stage where I'm still learning and growing, improving, and just focused on collecting useful techniques so that when I do start marketing myself properly, my ability and skills are the best they can be. Imagine I'm out here trying to promote my voice and expertise and it's all poor quality. Like, that's just dead. Because it won't actually matter how much marketing I do, I won't succeed. I've had to get really comfortable with cold emailing because I've realized if I want to have a long career, I'm going to have to find my own work by whatever channels are available to me. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? What, they just don't get back to me? But, I'm going to keep trying. So that's what I've been doing and it's been working. What do you find most challenging or dislike about marketing? Having to put myself out there makes me feel really vulnerable, and the idea of having to sell my voice as a business still irks me. But I had to really check my mindset and stop looking at it like I'm selling, because I'm not a natural salesperson at all. But I'm me, and I can do me, so that's what I do. I maintain professionalism, and I'm always polite, but I show my personality because I have to have fun with this. If I'm not having fun, I just don't see the point in doing it. And I might as well give up. And that is definitely not an option.
I'm Kelly McBride. I've been a voiceover artist full-time since around mid-2021, so I still consider myself somewhat of a newbie. So I don't have one particular platform or method of marketing that works best for me. I think when you're a newbie or whether you're an established voiceover, you should always be testing and learning what works well for you and essentially planting your seeds far and wide to see what grows. I like to sort of think of it as an exercise in figuring out where your audience likes to hang out and how they like to be communicated with. You wouldn't necessarily use the same tactics for contacting a gaming developer as you would for reaching out to an instructional designer, for e-learning, for example. So I will always tailor my approach. I will always research a company or an individual in advance to see how and where they're most active online so that, I can come prepared. So whether that's striking up a conversation on LinkedIn, if I see that they use that platform a lot, if they post a lot, or Instagram, if they post a lot of their content there, or just good old email marketing. I've had a lot of success with that. Just going directly, especially with freelancers like animators or sound designers. They love emails, well, at least in my experience. So yeah, ultimately, I think it's an exercise in testing and learning what works for you. I think the most challenging aspect of marketing for me is being consistent with it over time and doing it every single day. Working in advertising, you learn that the companies that have the most success have an always-on strategy across different channels. And that means that they're constantly at the top of a consumer's mind, so that when a consumer is ready to buy that product, they immediately think of that particular brand. And it's the same when you run your own business. I think that in order to grow my business, I should be marketing myself in some way, big or small, every single day, just to put myself in front of potential voice buyers. But it can be hard, like when you've actually got to do the work itself, when you're auditioning, or when you just have other priorities in life. I have a toddler that takes up a lot of my time and energy. So I think that pressure to be constantly on is a big challenge. And also just figuring out what to say. But again, it's a question of testing and learning what sort of content resonates with your audience and what you like to create. And I suppose that the more you sharpen that tool, whether it's writing blogs or creating videos, the easier it gets and the less of a chore it is. So that's what I'm trying to do more instead of laboring over the idea of it too much.
As always, I want to get in the mind of an expert and ask questions. I reached out to a friend of mine, award-winning voiceover Chris Tester, to have a little chat. Even though I know he won't call himself an expert, I definitely used a lot of his online resources and courses early in my career, which has helped me immensely and have adapted over time. We spoke about what you need in order to start marketing, how to construct marketing emails, who to contact, why people hate marketing, and more. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm all right. Just kind of like chugging along, really. I suppose, as we all kind of like do now that autumn is properly here.
Yes.
So, not at all panicking about end of year goals. If you want to talk voiceover stuff, starting up.
So the reason why I wanted to speak with you today, when I first started, I actually used a lot of your marketing resources that you would post on, Instagram, Skillshare,
Yep.
etc. And I find them very useful. And even though you may not consider yourself to be an expert, because I know you're a very humble man, you are. I definitely consider
totally,
you as, one of the voiceovers out there, at least in my world, on my radar, that consistently puts out marketing and educational content that, not only myself find useful, but people that I speak to find useful. So I wanted to, just talk about marketing, from the very ground level. I know you have a lot of resources out there, so
Sure.
I will point people in your direction, after the talk. But just to touch base on some questions that I have that other people have asked me to ask. So yeah, how does that sound?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, that sounds terrible. There's no way I'm agreeing to that kind of stuff. Thanks very much, Joe, for the opportunity, and I hope you have a great week until you hit your goal or don't. Of course, yeah, no, whatever specific questions that you have, there's a lot of stuff that's pre-existing kind of out there, so I don't want to repeat myself and kind of like bore people, but if there's anything kind of like specific that you want to ask, go ahead, shoot, go for it.
So would you like to introduce yourself and how long you've been doing VO?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I've been full-time in voiceover since 2017. The bar was very low for me to go into full-time though, because I was just like a jobbing voice actor. A jobbing actor. But beforehand, other than that, my resting work, my non-actor work was all 0-hour contract stuff. So it really didn't take much for me to go, oh, okay, as soon as I got a bit of momentum with voiceover, I'll leave the box office job on the front of house job, because it offered minimal security anyway. So within like 6 months of starting to have a kind of like a home studio of some kind of sorts, I was able to kind of like transition over and focus on it being kind of like full time. And I suppose kind of like looking at the marketing side of things, the first things that I did was you try everything and you see what sticks. You throw everything at the wall and you see what sticks, whether or not you know it's good or bad or indifferent or whatever. So I signed up to pay to plays. I signed up to freelancing sites such as Fiverr and Upwork. I then started to do kind of like direct email marketing as well, because everyone told me that you needed to do that. I got on social media and kind of started to change my brand. I created a website which was specifically for voiceover rather than just my acting website, all of these kind of things. And then at various different stages, they either took off or they didn't. So the very first job that I got working from home was from a pay-to-play site. That was from, I think, Voice123. The most sustained, consistent income that I had, certainly for the first 3 years, was Fiverr. And then the direct marketing kind of stuff was a real kind of like slow burn, but has kind of like, I'm starting to reap the benefits of that more and more and more. And the fact that I own those contacts because I'm reaching out to them, I'm not dependent on anything. And then this year specifically as well, the other things have been SEO. And I'm starting to see more people just organically finding me, which is good. And content creation, generally
Yeah.
speaking, and finding out different platforms. What platforms work for me? What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? And so if you've if you followed me on Instagram, for example, you'll see that I have tried a variety of different things, a lot of which hasn't worked at all. But that then I've kind of like taken them and kind of modeled them on different things. So I'm at a stage now where it's kind of like, yeah, I've kind of done some hard graft into it.
Yeah.
And actually, because I'm still spending a lot of time doing the marketing side of things, I want to try and make the marketing as creative and enjoyable as
Of
possible
course.
as well. And because
Yeah.
I've got that client base already kind of established now, I feel as if I have the time to kind of take the risk to experiment. Whereas if I was like, no, I'm living hand to mouth, I couldn't do that in the same
Mm.
way.
I saw a post you put out the other day on Instagram talking about it covered a few bullet points, but one of them that stood out to me was, is it too early for me to start marketing? When is a good time to start, and what do you need in order to start marketing?
I mean, a setup that is consistent, I think, is the main thing. I mean, I think we all know that we're all going to get shit scared the first time we're booked for a job
Yeah.
from our home studio or setups or anything. And that, to be honest, that feeling never goes away, because it changes into something different. Because, the imposter syndrome is very good in terms of like finding what your next weakness is. So you
Yeah.
might do 100 directed sessions from home, and think that means that you're now comfortable in doing it. But there's always going to be that voice going like, yeah, you're going to fuck it up, and the internet's going to die, and your computer's going to explode, and your interface is going to set on fire, and your microphone's suddenly going to stop working. All of those things. So it never stops. It never ends. But I think, consistency, I think, is almost as important as quality. Because if something is bad but solvable and at least consistent, that's much better than kind of going, oh, you sound fine. Oh, now it's sounding completely different because you're
Yeah.
recording in a different room with a different. So I think having that, but then really, I think we always find it different excuses for not getting started on the marketing. Like, our marketing is not good enough, and we're not ready, and our demos aren't good enough, and we're not good enough, and the website isn't ready yet, and all of these kind of things. And in actual fact, you've got, first of all, you've got to acknowledge that no one cares. No one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares, apart from your mum. So there's that aspect. And then the other aspect is that you only get better by consistently doing
By
stuff.
doing it, yeah.
And that means actually putting stuff out there. Hopefully through practice and through working via trial and error, what works and what doesn't work. Yeah, to a certain degree, you can see what other people are doing and learn from them. But it might not work for you in the same way, because although as voice actors, we're all doing a lot of the same kind of thing. We're all different products, out there. We all have different skill sets, different personalities, different markets as a result. And so therefore, if I try and just copy what someone else is kind of doing, expecting that I'll get the same results, I'll almost certainly kind of like fall on my ass. So I'm all for kind of like copying everybody and trying things on, seeing how it works, whether or not I enjoy it, whether or not I get results from it. And that requires some bravery to kind of test for some sustained period of time rather than, adopting a kind of one and done type of attitude. But yeah, I mean, there's gonna be quite a bit of failure there as well.
Why do you think people don't like the marketing side of things or find it difficult?
Well, it's not the reason why we started getting in voiceover, is it necessarily? I mean, whether or not you got in voiceover for the money or because you enjoyed it or, and you always did like crazy voices or whatever, or you aspire to work with certain brands or certain people or certain creative directors or whatever. I think very few people would be like, yeah, I just love sending emails. I just really like setting up a website. I really like paying over the odds for a voiceover demo that no one listens to. All of the, I really love, all of the different aspects to social media, endlessly scrolling and comparing myself to other people who I'll never meet, and chastising myself as not being as apparently successful as they are. There are many reasons why not to want to kind of like even get started on that in many kind of ways, because what we want to be is, behind the mic, doing the stuff, doing the work that we kind of like care and are passionate about, or being, clapped on the back for having hopefully done a good job or not fuck anything up in any kind of way, shape or form. So it's difficult and it's hard. And in that respect, I don't think anybody wants to go like, look at me kind of consistently, but it is the nature of the beast. And I think the other thing is it's that fear of missing out, fear of like, well, if I do commit time and stuff to doing one particular thing, what if I don't get results? What if I'm doing the wrong thing? What if I'm wasting time? So that means we don't post on social media or we don't send those emails or whatever because we're not 100% convinced, because there's always someone out there saying, no, the best way to, engage and get voiceover work in 2022 is go on TikTok or start Instagram Reels or, get on LinkedIn or, buy Sales Navigator or whatever. So you go like, well, do I commit to the email kind of thing now? Or do I commit to cold calling now or whatever? You're so overwhelmed by all of the information, you just remain static and you don't do anything. And I'm aware of that because, almost 6 years down the road, I'm still subject to it myself, and I'll be very free and kind of like open about.
And how would you, if you're going down the direct marketing and emailing people, I know you do touch upon this in your Skillshare course, but how do you construct a marketing email? What do you include, and how has that changed for you over time?
Okay, cool. I mean, do you do much direct marketing at the moment now, Joe, yourself?
At the moment, I've been really bad with it. But I obviously do direct marketing. Yes.
Yeah, sure. And I think, it's that thing about like, I think you'll feel yourself be comfortable with different things at different times. The thing is that like, you want to get in and get out as quickly as possible because time is money, blah, blah, blah. You want to be respectful of that. So I have always been in a constant state of refining and getting lower and lower. So, trying to aim for about 150 words, about a minute to a minute and a half of it takes to read, knowing that people won't read it more often than not, that they won't. There's the whole personalization thing. Know that you're addressing the right person. And if you want to throw a compliment in there about their work to show that there's some level of engagement, already there's the voice in the back of your head going like, yeah, but all of the other voice actors are doing that. So what makes that ping? What makes that different? And that's certainly true, which is why my next stage, how that has evolved really, is to do with video. So for me, I record a video here if I feel it's worth it, so that I'll have that introductory thing, but I'll say,
Is this to the client or is it online?
It's to the client, but it's kind of held online. So there are various different kind of video things where you can create something that uploads to a kind of like a private server,
Oh,
essentially.
okay.
So you
Okay.
can send someone like you can send someone a kind of a link, which is actually a GIF, which is a video
Okay.
of yourself and saying, "Hi, my name's Chris, and I really like such and such and such and such," and saying it that way. So you have it as the because I'm being much more selective, and I try and aim to send no more than kind of like 5 emails a week, so one a day, essentially, to something very chosen, very specific that I want to reach out to. But it shows me, but it's also because they hear my studio, they hear my voice. Without them having to press play on my demo or anything, they see what kind of person that I'm like, and whether or not they would like to work with me or not. So it catalyzes that decision-making process. But I've also invested, however much in my studio, which is behind me.
They see that.
And
Yeah.
they see all of this. And I make a joke of the fact that, yeah, as you might have guessed it, I'm a voice actor because the microphone is front and center and all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Because you got to be self-aware from it. But you're reaching out to people who say that, video and is integral to storytelling in 2022. So maybe reach out in those terms. It seems like a bit of a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
So that's how it's evolved. I mean, I don't do it all of the time because obviously you've got to be sensitive to your timing. How long does it take? But it doesn't take me that long now that I've got the thing set up, and I've got a studio to show off and everything else like that. But yeah, those people that respond, it does generally get a higher response rate. Rather than about 1 in 10 responding to my emails, 1 in 9 responding to my emails, I get about 1 in 4 responding to a video message instead. If they choose to click on it, which is, the whole thing. So you still got to make sure that it doesn't take a huge amount of time to set up and kind of like do. But yeah, it's just kind of a more and more, it's about kind of, it's the person. This is the personal brand here. Yeah, it's the guy with the teacup and the suit partly. But it's this is a different way of making yourself seem memorable. And I'm always looking for those opportunities where, okay, everybody's doing this. How can you find a way to stand out now that everybody's doing it? Whilst at the same time going like, even if everybody's doing it and you can't think of a way of standing out differently, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Shouldn't do it. Yeah.
And just go like, oh, we'll do nothing then. Yeah. Keep doing the thing. It might have less good results than it did 10 years ago, but it'll still get results.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. And where would you say you get the best results in terms of marketing your business?
So would that include things like social media?
Yes. Yeah.
And SEO. It's a whole combination. It really varies. I mean, the figures that are easiest to track are always going to be the emails and follow-ups on emails and all of that kind of stuff. But I have, my whole thing is about trying to create more interesting ways, first and foremost, of doing this rather than just sending the emails and saying, look at me. I think that's important. And so going into various different types of content creation is been a really useful thing to do. And I'm starting to get, the whole idea is this is all outbound stuff. If we want to go really marketing speak, there's the outbound stuff where you're actively reaching out to those people. But there are loads of people out there who might need me, who I'm just unaware of, because my lead generation can only do so much. So inbound leads, inbound working is a thing that I've been kind of like focusing on. And that's where I've started to see quite a bit of traction on LinkedIn, where it's very much a B2B, business to business kind of like space, which is very much my kind of brand, really, to generalize massively. So I've already seen kind of like inbound work from there. And TikTok, bizarrely, has started to kind of like take off a bit as well for kinds of work where I wouldn't know who to reach out to in the first place. So just making people aware of me in different kind of ways. But then this all feeds into, because of the fear is always kind of like, oh, but I'd spend all this time creating this content or not, or whatever. How is it, if it doesn't work, quote unquote, am I just wasting my time? What I've now kind of set up in my mind is kind of like, say, my best performing LinkedIn post for a month or a week then goes as a blog on my website, and it feeds in my SEO so if you put in, British male voiceover, then I'm still going to rank higher as a result of that, so it's keyworded and all of that kind of thing, but it's put up there. And and then I'll use that kind of content in different places. So maybe for a follow-up email as well.
Yeah.
I could be, a list of productivity tips to do specifically with videographers or something, which I did as a post. If there's a lot of engagement on it, then that's a very justifiable follow-up, which isn't just, hey, look at me, I'm another voiceover and here's another demo.
Yeah.
It's finding ways of being able to, provide solutions or entertainment or some other kind of thing to be a bit more memorable than just here's this amazing explainer video that I did. Although that's obviously just as valid, it's just finding different ways around it. So that's it. I would say the core is still the direct marketing in terms of the marketing that I do, that I go out there. But my focus is much more now on getting the inbound stuff in a more kind of conscious way.
In terms of, when, speaking from personal experience, there's been times where I felt like I've plateaued in terms of marketing and finding new clients. How have you got over that, if you felt that way? Because obviously there's times when you're getting a lot of work and you might get a bit lazy and not do marketing, or might not have the time to do marketing, but you're still getting work. And then you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm going to do some research, look for some new clients, but then you come across the same clients.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then what do I do now?
Well, I mean, this is the whole reason why, in all honesty, I'm looking at the inbound stuff, because it's like, with however many people that there are out there, there's part of my mind that rationally knows, like, I haven't obviously exhausted all of the clients in the world,
Yeah, of course.
but you'll have approached all of the main big hitters in some way, shape, or form. The big hitters may change. Giles may move to that agency and Lisa may move to that, advertising agency. And so you can try and double check that kind of stuff as much as possible. But yeah, you plug video production London into Google, you're only going to get a certain number of kind of like results. And, I'm sure, I certainly wouldn't want to be the person who's got the admin address for the number one result on that, because I'm sure they're absolutely fucking inundated. And damn near kind of like, oh, another voice actor. I can't wait to respond. So the inbound stuff is where I think it's more interesting, because I can be a bit more creative. I can think a bit more kind of laterally about kind of things. And so therefore the people that I'm not aware might even know about voiceover or need a voiceover kind of come to me. I can give a very specific example, which is that there was a video game. I can't say because I have signed an NDA, which makes me sound like a wanker, I feel. But I'll tell you about it anyway. No, so there's a game developer that there's a game developer who will go unnamed, who I greatly admired kind of like growing up in terms of playing all of their games and stuff. I didn't realize that he was working on a new IP or anything else like that at all, or even that, that they were casting for anything recently. But then the writer for that project put a post on LinkedIn. Now, I wasn't connected to that person. I didn't know that writer existed, so I didn't see the post. But because a lot of my mutual connections were connected in that kind of like way, and lots of them atted me in the comments saying, Chris would be perfect for this. You should see Chris Tester, blah, 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 blah. And that got me, I didn't even have to audition. They just like looked at my website and said, do you want to do the thing? So I did the thing, and it was great. I was completely unaware. I wouldn't have known who to have contacted. You go to that company's website, there's no reference to the person who was the contact that reached out to me or anything. So it was, as far as trying to do it in an outbound kind of way, there was just nowhere to kind of like start with it. But because I put content out there that had demonstrated that I might not be a dick and might be sometimes quite good at my job, enough people were kind of had me, the dreaded phrase, top of mind, but it's there for a reason. I was top of mind enough that people kind of went like, this guy, maybe, because God, he's everywhere. And that worked. So I'm getting more instances of that kind of stuff. And that's taking off the pressure of like, I need to do lead gen. I mean, the other thing is obviously is that you build up a good relationship with, if you're not doing the lead generation yourself, someone who has knowledge in a particular industry. And I worked with a virtual assistant who specifically had knowledge in a particular industry and said, could you do lead gen for this? And you can think of the titles that you should be looking for.
Yeah.
Rather than me going, it's creative directors and head of production and I don't know what every other phrase that you normally, you go down your own client list and go, what do they call themselves? Being able to target a specific industry with an insider and go like, who's making these decisions? And can you do that? So I think there's two ways of going. You hire someone with a kind of like a lead generation capacity, which is maybe a bit more refined, who's working in that industry already and maybe does it on the side, and it's creating that kind of inbound stuff by going, what platform do I want to be active on? What content do I want to be putting out there? How's that going to work? I've tried inbound stuff on Instagram, died a death very quickly for me. So Instagram is kind of like, it's a place to keep my mum updated about what I'm doing. And it's kind of like a dumping ground for all of my other kind of content because all of the people that follow me on Instagram are other voice actors. So as long as I post about voice acting, it gets engagement. If it's anything tangential to that, it doesn't. And so it dies on its ass. I move that content over to TikTok or I move it over to LinkedIn, does much better, gets me opportunities. So it's just being mindful of those things.
What do you wish you knew then that you know now?
I think that there's no one way. There's no one way of doing it. Everybody says, this is the one thing. This is the one way of being able to do it. And there is no one way. And it is all to do with you taking responsibility for your actions and your business ultimately. That's not to say that it's easy, because it really isn't. It really isn't easy. I think we kind of like forget quite how challenging it can be when you are the sole business VOpreneur or whatever. So I think my main thing is kind of like what's bearable realistically for you, because for some people in all reality, the concept of just sending out marketing email after marketing email after marketing email, and you're a creative person, and etc., you don't want to do that shit, and maybe that actually sucks the love out of the whole reason that you got started in the first place. So you've got two things you can do, two options that you can do. You can either get over that and keep doing the thing, copyright Mark Scott, which is perfectly valid, or you can go like, is there something that works to a certain degree that you do love doing and do 10 times that amount because you love doing it, okay? And then through sheer quantity, as long as you know that there is a rationale behind it, that you're not just screaming out into a void. But if you love doing it in a way, then go all in that way, rather than going, oh, but maybe I want to do this, or maybe I want to do that, or maybe I want to do the other thing. I'll always be kind of about like, direct marketing is the easiest way to have direct relationships with clients. So if, a website goes down, you're not completely screwed. And that's always going to be perennially the fear of all of those kind of things. But there are different ways of doing it. And, I'm seeing that with results with LinkedIn and results with TikTok in the last year, I would say. The last 6 months with TikTok, the last year with LinkedIn. I mean, to be very specific, it's not like I'm drowning in jobs from inbound leads there. I probably get maybe a job every 5-6 weeks from LinkedIn. And I probably get, only recently as TikTok kind of like kicked off for me, but I've had like about 3 jobs. And I've been at it kind of consistently for about 6 or 7 months. So, in terms of the payoff, not crazy right now, but that's starting to pick up as well. That's not going to replace my direct marketing anytime soon. But because I'm passionate about it and putting stuff out there, it seems to be finding a bit more of a balance. But going that there's no one way, just being honest with yourself in terms of like, if there's a particular avenue, whether or not that's social media or direct marketing or something else where you're like, I just don't really want to touch it with a barge pole, the very idea of it makes me want to throw up, then it's kind of like, be honest with yourself and go like, okay, well, what else can I get really fucking good at that I will do consistently? Would be the honest thing.
Well, sir, thank you for answering my questions, and you're always a big help. So thank you
That's
for
my
taking
pleasure.
your time out today.
No, not
Thank you
at
very
all.
much.
No, my pleasure. Hopefully, like in terms of, I just kind of say is like, keep an eye out on what other people are doing and what's interesting, what seems to get kind of like traction out there, and then learn from it, imitate it in your own kind of terms, try it on for size, see if it might kind of like work. And it's through that experimentation of kind of like doing that, I think you can then kind of move forward and kind of make things on your own. But yeah, it's not the most exciting part of the job, but in order for us to keep being able to do the job consistently, kind of got to do it in some way. So that's the only thing. So people are welcome to kind of like reach out to me in that respect, if they have any questions and stuff, and I'll respond as and when I can.
So, what did I learn from today's conversation? Do not start outbound marketing unless you can deliver a consistent, reliable sound. You want your demos to match your sound, as this is why the client wants to work with you. Direct marketing is when you contact a potential client and offer your services to them. Keep your direct marketing email short and to the point. Put your unique selling points in the subject line and make the client want to read more. To maximize your inbound marketing, utilize all online mediums and repurpose content for different platforms. You want to make yourself seen and be memorable. Never stop. Marketing is part and parcel of the job, and you will find yourself doing it more than not. Make sure you give yourself goals about how many clients you want to contact per day, week, or even month. Thank you, Chris Tester, for sharing your knowledge, answering my questions, and helping make this episode possible. Remember, marketing is like an onion and has many layers to it. I only managed to scratch the surface in this episode, so if you would like to find out more, please use the resources and links in the show notes, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Looks like my time is up for this week. Signing out until next episode. Bye.